Colin Vedros Show on 91.7 The Demon. Hello, everyone. It's your boy, Colin Vedros. And, so happy Tuesday, last day of January, which is kind of crazy to think about. I mean, the year kind of already just started. A lot of things to talk about today. Not going to be on a whole lot. I do need to go get a haircut today. That's a must. I guess we'll start with... what happened this weekend? Well, I guess we can also start with the weather today. 42 degrees outside, pretty cloudy, so make sure to have a rain jacket just in case. It should stop raining around 12. It should be a little bit more drizzly today, but it's going to pretty much stay in the mid-40s all day today, so make sure to bundle up. I got a couple jackets on. Well, if you can see on the live stream, I just have one jacket on right now. It is kind of warm in here, so that would make a whole lot of sense. So, a lot of good things from over the weekend. Demons getting a couple of good wins over the weekend as well. Thursday and Saturday, men's and women's producing some pretty high-intensity games, and one of them, Candace Paramore, getting Southland Conference Player of the Week nod. You know, something super big on that. And I think when you look at how much she's progressed as a player, I mean, coming in last season, it's just been a pretty incredible ride just to see how much she's been able to get through most of the season. And in both games this weekend, you know, we had the Houston Christian game on Thursday and then Lamar on Saturday, crossed the 20-point mark against both teams and scored a career-high 24 points on Thursday. I mean, in college, of course, you're learning the game, you're getting used to it and everything like that, and you're getting away from the amateur side of it. But 20 points a game is kind of intense. I mean, when you look at how much that NSU has made progress over the years, especially with women's basketball, men's basketball, the progress has been very slow, but very, what's the word? It's not just slow, it's very progressive, and the journey is what you're really focused on. Because a lot of people, when you look at how much athletics has changed throughout the course of history, and you look at nationally, you look at statewide, and even you look at NSU, a lot of things have gone in the way of the athlete. And you look at NIL deals, you look at other endorsements on the side. I mean, there's different things that any athlete can get themselves into, good or bad. You know, I mean, a lot of the times you'll hear about athletes getting Nike deals or Adidas deals, any kind of shoe deals or anything like that. But it really just depends on the athlete, and it depends on how much they're willing to give up for that. So a lot of it really just depends on the athlete. And I mean, with Candace Paramore, she passed up 1,000 career points whenever they played New Orleans last week. I mean, she's just doing some incredible things. And after the pair of conference wins, NSU's pretty sitting about midway through in the women's rankings. The men's rankings tied for seconds, right below Southeastern, so make sure to look out for that. So yeah, let's just kind of go into what NSU basketball has been so far this season. I mean, yeah, it's been kind of shaky. 9-10 overall, 5-4 in conference play, so they're over 500 in conference play with the win on Saturday. But take a look at some of these games that they've come and gone. The first being against Nichols back in January at home, 67-58. Then it progressed a little bit more, getting a 1-point win against McNeese, 62-61. Then you travel a little bit further. You had a couple losses to Southeastern and New Orleans away, and then you got the win against Nichols, and then you come home and 59-48 against Houston Christian, and then a close game, 54-52 against Lamar, the number one scoring or 3-point scoring team in the country. So, of course, that would produce a good bit of fireworks in that game, and it did. I mean, you look at Candace Barrymore shooting over 20 points a game, had 20 points in that one. Alicia White with 8 rebounds and 3 assists on the day, so Alicia White was also a big part of that team. But offensively, the Demons have been able to make it to where they don't need separation so good early on. So we'll just have to see what it goes from there. For the men's side, I mean, if you haven't been keeping up lately with how much the men's side has been doing, take a look at SportsCenter for a hot minute, or you can look at College Game Day, which we appeared on there as well. And I mean, talk about the grits that both of these teams have had. I mean, you talk about women's basketball, and they've kind of had more of a cohesion in the past few games, and then you look at men's basketball, and it's kind of the same aspect. What Corey Gibson has been able to do in his first year is impressive, and a lot of people look at it and are like, oh yeah, like this is going to be something that's going to be a lifetime. Well, we hope it is, but you never really know. So, and they both got wins against Houston Christian and against Lamar. In the Houston Christian game, Jamonte Black was able to get make a career-high 87 threes in a season, and also breaking the record of most three-pointers in a season with 87, and then went on to make another one to make it 88 that night. And I'm not really sure where his stats are right now, but I have a guess that if they play Thursday, he will probably break that stat. We'll take a break. We'll come right back. You're listening in to the Colin Vedros Show, only on 91.7 The Demon.
KNWD loves our listeners. You rock. Keep it locked right there on 91.7 KNWD The Demon.
Let me take you around the ocean. I'm Mr. Big, with my hand up on my hips. Oh, I just wanna see the sun. This sunscreen always seems to me I'm meant to have stuff my tats on the beach. Or in the club. I'm on a jet ski, mixing his break up, and he tells me that I'm fun. I know it's fun. But I'm not for everyone, and you're not for everyone. I'm still here to make a splash. So, feel so good on my skin. Take a leap over the edge. You feel so good on my tongue. Let me play sweet on the fly. I'm on the run. Let me take you around the ocean. I got an island off the keys, full of us in chimpanzees. They wanna battle. Be the king. What's that? I don't leave home without my cardboard. One piston don't make a scene. Let's have to share. We're not that different, you know. No one's that different, you know. Let's take a dive. You feel so good on my eyes. Take a deep breath and survive. I'm on the run. Yeah.
the Colin Vedros Show, only on 91.7 The Demon. Got a special guest with us. He is one of the coaches for the Lady Demons basketball team, has seen a lot of progress from this team, and a couple of things that, maybe keep it on the side. Landon Stevens joins us today. Landon, how we doing?
I'm feeling good.
It's good. Pretty good weather, huh?
It's cold. It's cold, but I like the cold.
Well, see, I'm okay with it, but at the same time, I'm not a huge fan of the rain so much.
Yeah, as long as it's not raining, then we're good.
Yeah, then we'll be fine. Kind of talking a little bit about an issue, women's basketball earlier, and you've seen a lot of progress from it. In the past 2 games, I mean, obviously you can't go into Southeastern and New Orleans thinking that it's going to be an easy game, right? I mean, both of those teams historically, and this is through all of athletics, they've been historically on the up and up. And I think if New Orleans had a football team, they'd be on the same wavelength, but can't have that happen. So
You're right.
But tell me about what you've seen so far, and then the 2 home games with HCU and Lamar. I know Lamar was a close one, and HCU provided some pretty close measures to that. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so going into the HCU and Lamar home series for last week, Candace Paramore, by the way, congratulations. She won Southland Conference Player of the Week.
Yes.
So very good there.
Putting up 20 points on both of those games.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really, our guard play is kind of the key to us winning.
Okay.
Giselle's been incredible whenever she got thrown into the starting lineup due to injuries and stuff like that. We're playing a lot better as a team, and we're starting to kind of not let emotions take over our slumps, because basketball, it's a game of runs.
Right.
Both teams are going to go on runs. It's about how are you going to respond? Are you going to respond with giving more effort, or are you just going to kind of go into the feelings, as Coach Nims would say?
Yeah. Well, I think, too, if you look at how much rebounds that they've been able to kind of get over the past few games, and that's kind of going out of the losing streak, coming into the winning streak. Talk to me about what you've seen defensively from this team. And offensively, you can look at Candace Paramore. I mean, scoring 20 points a game, averaging about from the past few games. And Giselle Woodson being that kind of spark at the point guard position. And then you'll see Candace and Sharna Ayers also making some pretty good strides, and Joelle Johnson kind of breaking through. So tell me, but defensively, how do you feel like that they've progressed in that sense?
Well, we've worked on our defense a lot this last week and this week upcoming. That's been our main focus, because we're not going to be able to take over games by just getting super hot offensively.
Right.
We're not going to be dropping 80+ points a game. So the way that you're going to have to win your games is by playing on defense. And we started to implement a little bit of a press. That's been like our main focus throughout our practices. You'll see about 15-20-minute segments of our practice just going all in all, shell defense, any sort of defensive drill, any sort of rebounding drills, and then at the end of our practice, we'll shoot, because at the end of the day, defense is going to win our games, and defense is what's going to win us potentially the conference tournament.
And that's how it should be, right? I mean, yes, you can have an offensive spark, but if you don't have that defense, if you don't have that wall up, then something's got to give.
Because defense will always travel. Your offense is not always going to travel. If you're not contributing on the offensive end, scoring points, what else are you doing to impact the game? Are you going to grab as many defensive rebounds as possible, offensive rebounds, getting steals, getting your assists, which is something that I've seen in our little winning streaks. We've had double-digit assists, about like a 65% ratio of like our assists to field goals. In our, I believe it was the HCU game, we had 13 assists on 20 made baskets.
Yes, that's
very good, because you're seeing ball movement on our offense.
Right.
But defensively, we shut them down. We only gave up 48 points to Houston Christian and 52 to Lamar, 2 teams that are near the top of our conference in scoring.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at Lamar, and they were number 1 in 3-point shooting before the game.
3-point shooting and 3-point field goal percentage,
Exactly.
and they were number 1 in 3-point defensive field goal percentage.
Yeah.
And guess what? We hit 9 of them.
There you go. I mean, and from that aspect, this is and what I'm about to say is more of a general thing. Basketball is all like you look at basketball, and it's like, okay, how can I shoot? How can I make this kind of shot? And especially with the Steph Currys of the world, the LeBron James, the Kyrie Irvings, that's going to be an attractive idea. When you move on to that defensive side, you're going you're making yourself available to prevent that from happening. And I think when you look at it, and that's in the NFL, that's in football, that's in baseball,
sports in
also.
general.
That's in sports in general. You have to have that defensive measure because the offense is going to be a hit or miss, right? Because you can become a baseball player that's going 500 every single game, like hitting everything that you see, and then the next few weeks will be in a kind of slump, and you have to kind of build yourself out of that. So defense and offense definitely kind of fluctuate in that aspect. But if you don't have defense, then what do you do?
Right, and if you look at every single like NCAA tournament winner, every single conference tournament winner, they were at the top of their conference or at the top of the country in defensive efficiency.
Yes.
That's every single year dating back to 2010. There has been a team that has won the conference tournament or their NCAA tournament, and they were ranked in the top 25 in defensive efficiency. So the defense will always show up for you because you're not going to have a great night every night offensively.
Right.
So you have to make sure that you give A-plus effort on defense. And then if the baskets fall, they fall. But if they don't, you can rely on your defense.
Yeah, and I think when you and defense, like you have to become that wall, otherwise it doesn't work. And going back to the offense a little bit, it's hard to score sometimes. I mean, there's some aspects where you get into a groove and you're like, oh yeah, we're shooting everything. I feel like that's what Candace Paramore's on right now, right? And I mean, and then there's some times where you go into the slump, and it's like, how do you drag yourself out of that? But
Right. In the loss against like McNeese, we were on fire in the first quarter. We were up by 12 at one point, and then you hit that lull, and it's like you got to get stops at some point. And we didn't do that in that game.
That's just how it goes, I guess. Colin Vedros Show. Landon Stevens with us this morning, and I know you've seen a couple of men's basketball practices as well. Talk to me about what you've seen from Corey Gibson on the outside view. I know there's been a lot of things about the McNeese game. We've talked about that a little bit. We've also kind of seen about like what Hansel Emmanuel has been able to do, which, by the way, in the past few games, if you haven't seen it on ESPN, I mean, you kind of need to go see it. But the team aspect of it, what have you seen from those practices in the time that you have seen from it?
So I haven't really seen a ton from like the practice perspective because I'm only there for about a couple minutes at a time.
Right.
But you can hear the passion from Gip about, not being satisfied with where they're at. Like, yes, you're 14-8 and you're one of the best mid-majors in the country. That's good.
Not to mention having that TCU win under our belt. Yeah.
But there is still a lot of work to be done.
Of course.
Because, you're only halfway through conference season. And what we saw from earlier this season when they went on like this big losing streak after a really big winning streak, I think we want to kind of keep that same feeling of let's keep winning because we saw what happened whenever we lost our first game.
Yes.
Very historic. It was a historically good game from Rice.
Yeah.
Scoring 110 points on 68% shooting, I believe. It was a school record.
Yeah.
But
and I don't even count the Rice game anymore. Like that was such of a
it's a big outlier.
That was the only outlier. Like I remember watching like a friend of mine was sending me stuff from the game. I'm just like what are we like? It looked like we were a deflated balloon. But then you come out of that and the progress was there. I mean, it was just insane.
Yeah, and I think Coach Gibson wants to make sure that the guys are still hungry.
Yeah.
Get it? They're on this big winning streak, so you're feeling good. But now you're going to go down to Houston Christian and Lamar, and they're going to be wanting revenge on their home floor. So those are not going to be easy games, even if we beat HCU and Lamar by 20.
Yes.
Going to their place after when it's still fresh in their minds, they're not good. They're gonna play a lot tougher. And it's very hard to win on the road.
Yeah, that's especially the truth. And I mean, we'll have to play Corpus Christi at the end of the season, so I'm looking forward to that one especially. But I mean, talk to me about you've seen games where Prather, like you couldn't hear anything after one of the biggest like drops that you've ever seen with Hansel Emmanuel going in for the dunk, and the spin move with the English. I mean, that was just insane also. But it's really been Corey Gibson's life coach mentality that has really brought this team together. And when you look at how much they've kind of had so much chemistry together, it's not just Sharp, Black, and Haney that's doing everything. You got Greedy Williams that's going on the side trying to get layups. You got Jalen Hampton coming in from literally the clouds above trying to dunk on people. I mean, it's just like you see more energy from these guys, and it's a lot. Cedric Garrett's getting a couple minutes. Harrison Black's getting a couple minutes. Carlin Hardy's also getting a couple minutes. We've seen a little bit of Majak every now and then. And then obviously with Hansel doing his own thing, there's a lot more attention to us, not just on the hype side where everybody's seeing all the dunks and everything, but it's progressive also.
And you brought up the point of Coach Gibson being a life coach, and I think that's super important when it comes down to the chemistry of the team, because yes. I'm a firm believer in your life lessons. Like this, like you can teach lessons in sports, but they can also translate into life. And I think Gip is also teaching them how to be great young men.
Yes.
And you're seeing the camaraderie of this team as they get closer and closer together, because they all have that one goal of let's win this conference tournament. Let's get to the NCAA tournament, which you haven't been in 10 years.
Right.
You know, it's almost like, you know, let's put our name in the history books now.
Let's do something, yeah.
Let's make NSU known now, because, you know, there's a lot of national hype when Hansel goes in for his dunks and he gets his highlight plays. But you're also seeing, you know, in the UNO game, Hansel made the selfless play. You know, he makes the pass to Jordan, and Big Jordan gets the dunk.
Right.
You know, you're seeing it's not just because, you know, everybody wants to see the Hansel dunk over somebody, but now you're seeing Hansel give it up to Jordan and say, here's some spotlight.
Yes.
And I think it's a very selfless team. They're going to do things for each other. You know, when you listen to DeMarcus Sharp's post-game conference after his double-double versus Lamar,
yes,
he says, I always want to get my teammates involved. If I have to score, I can score. And
that was very important.
He can surely score.
Oh, yes, he can. He'll hit you with that step-back J, and it's over with.
Yes. But you hear him, and he's like, I want to get my teammates involved. You know, it's a selfless team, and they all care about each other. And that's where I think the success starts from. It starts from the teammates caring about each other, and then from that, it starts with your head coach.
Right.
The coach and the coaching staff, they care about these players. They buy into the coaches. The players buy into the players, buy into the players buy into the coaches. And you're seeing something that we really haven't seen since I've been here, at least.
Yeah, it's been a while. I think maybe 2018 it was kind of like that, but I mean, who really knows? Colin Vedros Show, Landon Stevens joining us today, and I guess we'll go into the conference championships before we head out of here. So the Eagles taking a big win over the 49ers, 31-7, I believe.
Yes.
And minus the fact that Brock Purdy was hurt and how much the 49ers were able to rejuvenate this past season, I think the 49ers have a lot of potential, and I think Brock Purdy has a lot of potential also.
That team is just dangerous in itself.
Yes.
Like, they literally lost the game because Brock Purdy couldn't throw. Like,
yeah.
he physically could not throw. And
yes.
so it just made the game plan very easy. Eagles stack the box, make sure McCaffrey doesn't break out on long runs.
That's literally all
it was kind of handed to him after Purdy got injured.
Right. And then you look at how much the Eagles have just been constantly been on top this season. I mean, both number one seeds have kept it, and look where they are now.
Well, and with the Eagles, you've seen their aggression in free agency in the trade market. You know, trading for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, trading for A.J. Brown, signing Hassan Reddick.
I was so mad about the C.J. Gardner-Johnson thing, but whatever.
I mean, it is
what it is.
What it is now.
Yeah.
But, you know, signing James Bradbury, you're seeing their front office doing a very good job of drafting.
Yes.
And they're doing a very good job of signing the veterans to fill those holes that the draft may not really help them out with.
And talk about a head coach in Nick Sirianni. I mean, like, that guy is a bona fide winner, for sure.
He's passionate, and you see it in the players that they're passionate about winning as well.
He's like one of the the guy the John Rothenstein, the one that does like the big basketball stuff.
Yes.
Whenever he says like Nate Oates, my cousin Vinny, a little this, a little that, I think of that as like Nick Sirianni's like, I guess not not his persona, but like undertone of his persona, like a kind of like Italian like mob kind of thing. In a sense.
I can see that.
But I'm only and that's really just saying because of his last name, right? Because I mean that's mainly an Italian last name. But
Right.
I mean just the mantra that he has with it, like he's just so about his players, he's about his team, and he's about winning, and that's what you want for the Eagles. Doug Peterson was that same way whenever they won it.
Right.
So I mean that kind of thing. With the Eagles, that's how they've kind of progressed.
That's just the Philly way, though. They're
course.
passionate about everything.
Oh yeah, even with the 76ers, who I don't even know when the last time they went to the championship was. But anyway, and then also Chiefs Bengals, pretty close game,
Much more competitive.
much more competitive. Dude, if they would have got the stinking O-line, man.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, like it's
the
been 2 seasons like that. You saw what happened last year in the Super Bowl.
Well, so
and it's not just on them. It's not just on them.
It's not just on them, but they had a ton of injuries because their 3 starters that they brought in free agency were all not available for this Chiefs game.
That's another thing.
You kind of saw, deja vu with Joe Burrow getting sacked 3 times in the first 2 drives, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
this is not gonna be a good game.
No.
Even though it was competitive for most of the game, and Cincinnati's defense is very underrated. Even with the
very
loss.
underrated.
Like
yeah.
you don't see a ton of like star players on that team, but it's just a bunch of solid pieces.
Well, and the Chiefs secondary was also on fire that game too.
Right.
Like Joe Burrow wasn't throwing these passes because
The defensive line was getting so much pressure
Yes.
on him immediately.
That was nuts.
So you didn't really see a ton of big plays from that Cincy off, or as many big plays as you wanted to see, because Jamar Chase and T. Higgins were still very good.
Yeah.
Tyler Boyd still made a couple of big plays.
Right.
But it just didn't really help that they were just getting so much pressure on every single play that you can't really dial up those big hitters.
No, and once you if you can dial them up, where do you go from there? I mean,
Right.
that's kind of, I don't know. The Chiefs were, I guess a lot of people had them underdogs because their defense is trash. Blah blah blah. Pat Mahomes is turning into the next Tom Brady, and Joe Burrow is turning into the next Drew Brees.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I mean by that. Patrick Mahomes is turning into the face of the NFL. If he hasn't already, which I'm pretty sure he already has, he's taking over the place of Tom Brady. The structure of it, and there's a new style to it. You're not playing, and he's in the current state of the league. You're not playing in a, quarterback-driven league. You're in a quarterback-driven league, but it's what you can do besides being a quarterback that matters. Because look at Patrick Mahomes. Like, he's been able to run. He's been able to get all these passes. It's not a traditional QB. Joe Burrow comes in, and he's the most traditional QB in this class. There's nobody else that follows the rules like he does. Or at least in the sense of they're not trying to over-exaggerate themselves kind of thing. They're not trying to get to the Lamar Jacksons of the world. They're not trying to get to the Pat Mahomes or Josh Allen, even in that sense. Those are like the newer age, and Joe Burrow is kind of like a good mix of both. And I feel like that's kind of what Breeze was, how accurate he was, how much precise he was, how many good players he had on his team too. I feel like that's kind of the scope that you'll see.
It's about team building.
Yes.
It doesn't revolve just around your quarterback. You have to have a very good team around him. You looked at the 49ers. They could throw anybody behind at quarterback, like Brock Purdy, the last pick of the draft last year.
Mr. Irrelevant, which is insane to think about.
Yeah, like he was doing very well.
Yeah.
But you looked at the team around him. Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, the number 1 defense in the league. Trent Williams and
Right.
McGlinchey were 2 Pro Bowl caliber tackles. They built a team that they said, you know what, any quarterback could succeed, whether it was Trey Lance, whether it's Garoppolo, whether it's Purdy, whether it's their 4th string, whether it's Juszczyk playing emergency quarterback.
Yeah, we need Gardner Minshew on the 49ers.
Right, like there's stuff, like anybody.
Because he would win a Super Bowl. If he stayed healthy, Gardner Minshew would win the Super Bowl
Yes.
with the 49ers.
Yeah, because it's basically, and you have one of the best offensive minds in the game.
Oh,
with
yes.
Kyle Shanahan. You have one of the best defensive coordinators in the game with D'Amico Ryans.
And you're in San Francisco. You're in California.
Yes.
And Los Angeles is not that far from you.
Right, so you have fan support. You have an incredible team around you.
And San Francisco, like, generally speaking, with the Giants, with the 49ers, and all their they kind of act like a little Philly also. Like they're passionate with it.
Right.
It's awesome. I guess that's pretty much going to do it here for today. Thank you all for tuning in for the Colin Vedros show. Shout out to Landon Stevens. We'll probably see you again sometime this week, maybe. Or
Maybe.
next week or something like that.
Next week. Next week's more likely.
We'll figure it out. Hopefully the weather doesn't get as bad. And I say as bad as in like not as cold and not as rainy. Okay, well that'll pretty much do it today. Thank you all for tuning in once again. And as always, Forkum Demons, have a good Tuesday, everyone. We'll see y'all next week.